or to do any specific thing, he's making a big mistake. FlowAid does one thing, and only one thing. It creates a venous outflow. That's all FlowAid does. Now, having said that we created a very powerful venous outflow, what the secondary factor is, if you make a void in the venous system, blood has to be coming in and refill it. It works with equilibrium pressure. If there's a void, arterial blood will come in. If there's pooling, swelling, and any kind of venous disorder, you'll have swollen legs, no venous drainage, and a lot of problems will develop. Extra pressure on the skin, which creates ulcers, non-healing ulcers because no fresh blood is getting to it, and the list just goes on and on. Whether it's going to be lymphedema, we have edema reduction. Actually, FlowAid is the only device that has FDA clearance for edema reduction. We can't say it heals lymphedema because lymphedema is a disease, but the symptom of swelling, we are allowed to say FlowAid reduces the swelling in lymphedema patients. So that's food for thought for our second part of our conversation. Now, how it really vacates blood out of the leg is a very, I would call it multidisciplinary professionals who were put together, and we figured out a way of moving the muscular system, the muscle system in the leg, to create a certain outcome. Usually when they do any kind of muscle stimulation, they're either treating the muscle for it to strengthen or toning, whatever it may be, or if they use TENS, wherever they put the local electrodes, they're treating that area. FlowAid has a simple pattern of exactly where we place the electrodes, no matter what the problem is. We try to mimic sequential compression therapy. The device that has a sleeve with different compartments. What does it actually do? You take the leg and you have, let's divide into three. We'll use the example of three along the whole conversation. You have the lower, middle, and upper. So if you put a sleeve on, you can have an ear compressor that's built right near it with hoses and pipes. It's going to inflate the lower section, it's going to inflate the next section, inflate the next section, so you're automatically vacating the venous flow. The veins. Now, after the veins are vacated, there isn't any sequential compression device that's going to tell you that he creates arterial flow. It's just an outcome. By the fact of vacating the venous system, you're automatically creating a fresh arterial inflow. Now, what are the problems usually with the venous system? Whether the veins are dilated or the valves are all messed up, and most of the damage in most patients are from the knee to the ankle. That's where the valves are very close to one another, and wear and tear. Once it's above the knee, the valves are much more distant, and they have less pressure over the years of pressure of being dilated or whatever it may be. So the main issue of what we're trying to accomplish is from the ankle to the knee, get it over the hill, get it into the system that is still okay, and it gets vacated, it goes back into the system, and fresh blood comes in. The regular, natural way of circulation, we all probably know, the arterial outflow works with the heart. The heart pumps, pushes the blood out till the furthest distance, till the microcapillaries in the bottom of the toes. The minute it gets to that microcapillary, the pressure is zero. The only way blood leaves the leg is through the calf muscle pump. That's what it's called. It's like the peripheral heart. In medicine, that's what they call it. The heart pushes out, and this area is a pump that pumps it back in. How does that work? When a person is healthy, he's moving, he has any kind of muscular contractions. As he walks, he contracts the muscles, and the muscles squeeze the veins, and it moves the blood from valve to valve, and it pushes it up, and that's how the circulation system goes. That's all good and dandy when people are healthy. The minute there's a compromise in the valve system, problems start developing. Either if it's severe problems, you'll have a lot of pooling, a lot of pressure, and you have the outcome of the pressure and the swelling is also, you have one result, another result. You're going to have ulcers, you're not going to be able to heal, you're going to have pain, whether it's going to be just swelling alone, or you're going to have, even if you're talking about PAD, peripheral arterial disease. PAD is because if you have no way to move the blood, it's not going to go anywhere. So people are having ischemic pain, terribly painful legs. If the circulation is compromised because the venous system is compromised, if you help and you assist the way along, the natural way, because you're creating the muscular contraction. Now, what is the difference between actually sequential compression and FlowAid? Sequential compression does it externally, and FlowAid created a pulse that exactly mimics the three sections that we've spoken about. You contract the lower muscle, the middle, and the top. You could visually see it, you could feel it. Troy has had the device on his leg more than once. You can visually see the steps of the contractions. The advantage of it is, just to knock off advantages, you can be mobile, you can walk around while you're being treated, you can have the device in your pocket, and we're actually working on a pouch just to put on your belt, and you can treat yourself whenever you want without having to go to a doctor for an appointment. You don't have to sit on the couch and watch, become a couch potato and sit 2 hours. And also a very important factor, sequential compression therapy, the way it works with the hoses and the air sleeves, it takes a while for each compartment to inflate. If you're pumping air, goes in, goes in, goes in, the deflation takes even longer to take out the air. So on average, in any competitive product, on average, it's about a minute a cycle. FlowAid at the lowest setting is about 25 times a minute. That means in 2 minutes you had an hour of treatment of sequential compression devices. That's the amount of blood you're vacating, the amount of blood you're pushing out of the system to be able to have fresh blood coming in. So if we're looking for advantages, why a small compact pocket-sized unit in comparing it to the bigger sequential compression devices, we understand that's also a major advantage because the time involved of the treatment is very minimal. Now, we're just talking overall about contractions and muscular contractions. Let's just put one diagram on the board and we'll be able to understand it a bit better. Sorry. Okay. Here we have the three sections of the leg. Here you have the vein, and we'll do it like this. Okay, this is the side view, and now we're just going to make the back view a second, along this same way. Okay. These are electrode pads. Here's the back view, here's the side view. We're going to do contraction number 1. It's going to be between 1 and 4, which is this area. You're going to have this muscle contract. It's going to go right like that. When a muscle contracts, it gets shorter and fatter. It compresses the vein. Now, it goes 4 to 1, 1 to 2. 1 to 2 is going to be along from here to here, which happens the middle muscle, which is going to be the cilius, is going to be here, which will expand and go over here. This is still contracted. It's not been released yet. Why is it very important to understand that? We have, this is the vein with the valves. If everything's beautiful and good, squeeze any way you want. You'll vacate a certain section and the blood will go up. Now, if you have compromised veins, you're going to squeeze here all what's going to happen is 50% of the blood is going to go up, 50% of the blood is going to go down. There's nothing holding it back. The valve nature is to hold back the reflux of any blood going back down, and we're trying to create a replacement to those valves. So if we're having this contracted while this is coming in, it has only one way to go. Then we have to do the next step. Two things have to happen at the same time. This has to be released and this is going to be compressed. Why is it very important to know that this has to be released? Because if you're going to come back down here fast, you won't have fresh blood in the system here. You'll be shooting on empty. So you want to release this while he's releasing this, compressing this, and then it comes back around. So he has fresh blood in this section here. Then it goes up, and that just brings it over the knee, and you're in much better territory. There is a device called, very important to know, we'll discuss it later as well in more detail, and they're going to ask you what are you different and what are you better. There's a device called Gecko, and there's a device called Vino Plus. This is an English guy, this is a French guy. This guy's starting to do some marketing in the United States. This, I don't know yet what his status in the United States is, but let me explain what these people do, and we'll understand that we are in a totally different paradigm. Like I explained here in this section, Jack, you can see here what I'm writing here? Mm-hmm. Now, if you create one squeeze, 50% is going down. If the valves are compromised, 50% goes down, 50% goes up, and whatever went up comes back down again. These devices, the Vino Plus is a technology that puts one electrode on the back of one leg, another electrode on the back of one leg, and it creates one squeeze. What really is one squeeze going to help when the valves are compromised? But the funniest factor of it, if you take a look at their website, most of their studies have been done on healthy subjects. So like I said before, and that's what I had in mind when I said it, when the valves are not compromised, squeeze anywhere, at least one squeeze, you'll create a very strong venous flow. But I don't think we're here to treat healthy people. But the Gecko does the same thing. The Gecko is a device that they put over here on top of the popliteal nerve and gives also one pulse, one squeeze, and they're also doing it on healthy subjects. Very, very few studies have been done on ulcers, maybe like 1 or 2 case studies out of a company that's doing a big marketing propaganda. But the bottom line is, when we understand that FlowAid alone is creating its own valvular system by keeping this lock position, then this being implemented the second pulse, only then releasing this to keep this held for the next compression, that's exactly how we accomplish it. Now, to understand also, when a person is going to ask a very simple question, oh, I've seen these devices, electrodes, stickers, and up and down, you know, when you're using TENS, the TENS device is very simple, because if you have a pain, let's say on your upper shoulder, you take 2 electrodes, this is positive, this is negative, and it just creates a pulse between one another, and for whatever reason the TENS works, whether it's going to be the gate theory, a million theories, a million ideas of how it works, why electrical impulses reduce pain. There are a lot of different theories, but whatever it is, which they try to treat that local area with electrical pulses. Electromuscular stimulation is a different frequency. TENS is much higher and less dense. A TENS will never go in to be able to create a muscular contraction. Neuromuscular electrical stimulation that goes much deeper, and it creates a muscle to contract. What is muscular contractions developed for? People that had strokes, muscle re-education, whether it's going to be disuse atrophy, people's muscles, person sitting in a wheelchair for ages, person's laying in bed, his muscles are just dying out, you put on the electrodes wherever you want to treat, so the muscle will contract and release, contract and release. It'll create more muscle mass, and it'll help the patient with his musculature. And that's a very important point that we'll talk also about in our roundtable discussion about reimbursement factor, about disuse atrophy, which is, there's a code, an existing code, but we'll discuss that later. Why am I saying it? To be able to take a FlowAid device with simple technology, you would need at least 8 electrodes, minimal, with a supercomputer telling you exactly when each pulse should happen. Why do I need 8 electrodes? And I don't know where you could put 8 electrodes on the calf of the foot. But let's say a guy wants to copy. What he's going to do is, if you want to create a pulse in this area, you have to have a positive charge and a negative charge, right? So that it goes into this area, and you're going to create in this area muscular contraction. The funny part is, this is electrode number 2. And electrode number 3 is right here. How are we creating the next pulse if this is negative? That's why our device is a 4-channel device. It has 4 electrodes, but usually 4-electrode device is 2-channel. Because there's a positive and a negative, you put it wherever you want. If you have one shoulder, put another shoulder, you have just 2 devices with 4 electrodes. FlowAid is 4 isolated channels. Channel number 1, let's call this number 1, and this is going to go from here to here. Channel number 2, the fact that channel number 1 has finished his job, he already created that contraction, the power gets diverted through, like I said, through the program to channel number 2. Channel number 2 makes this positive and makes this negative. Now, we do the same thing. This is channel number 2. Channel number 3 makes this positive and this negative and this positive and this negative. So, if a person wants to take regular stimulation, you would have a negative here, positive here, a negative here. You would have 8 electrodes in the back of the leg. So, we have a 4-channel device creating that. Now, to learn and to master, just by putting on electrodes and having muscles contract, you're not going to really gain anything. It's only the way our product has been has been developed is we learned the musculature well. We learned which one has to be contracted first, how long we have to keep it contracted, and when we could release it. So you're talking about taking electromuscular stimulation technology, which is usually used for muscle re-education, but we mastered a way of figuring out exactly how you could contract a specific muscle in a certain sequence of pattern. So that's exactly what FlowAid has accomplished. You do section 1, section 2, section 3, and it comes back again through the 4 electrodes. Now we know, all we learned here is one thing. What is the outcome of this? Only one thing. We created blood to go out. That's all we're doing. And FlowAid is finished. This is a whole FlowAid story. Now we turn the page, we can turn the board over, and we can figure out by ourselves why and what are the real causes of the problems and why FlowAid is the solution. You have a venous ulcer. How does a venous ulcer in a healthy person gets a cut? Let's forget about an ulcer. You would really not get ulcers, because ulcers usually are created when a patient is diabetic and neuropathic. He doesn't even know he stepped on a nail. He cut his ingrown toenail and he cut himself a little bit, and all of a sudden he got gangrene. It just got out of hand. It didn't heal. Regular healthy subjects, the blood has its own healing factors that are built into our system, that if blood will get to a wound, the healing factors will get to the wound, it will close up the wound naturally. But that's only well said and done if blood gets to it. Also, on a sidebar, if a person is taking medication, he has an infection, the amount of blood that's carrying the antibiotics to that location is so minute when circulation is compromised. It's almost not getting there. So when a person has a venous ulcer and he has a terrible infection, they could pump as much antibiotics as they want into the guy's system, but there's nothing getting to where it has to get to. So by helping the circulation and getting whatever the healing factors, the natural healing factors, no gauzes, no pads, no silver, no all kind of new inventions that there are. The regular natural system, we are just putting it back to work and on a healthy way. The patient feels exactly what's happening. He knows what's happening. In certain severe cases, I think I sent you, Randall, Dr. Graham Bowen's study that he had around the wound area after like 15, 20 minutes of being treated. We were able to see blood seeping in for the first time in months to the wound area. Remember how severe that picture was? That was an amputation case, and the guy says, you know what? Somebody just introduced me to a device called FlowAid. Dr. Graham Bowen, he runs one of the biggest healthcare, what is it called there in the UK? One of the healthcare trusts, Solent Healthcare Trust. He's the head podiatrist of the whole area, like 90,000 patients. He heard about FlowAid. I went down to him, I gave him the device. He treated numerous patients. He's actually doing a presentation in November at Wounds UK, one of the biggest conferences. The presentation was approved. It was on numerous different cases. So I went down, I introduced him to the device. He called in, I was there for a couple of days. He had numerous patients come in, all variety of patients, whether it's going to be venous problems, arterial problems, neuropathic. We shot in every direction. And his poster is going to be, usually a doctor writes a poster, you know, I treated this kind of case, multiple different diseases, whether it's neuropathy, whether it's going to be venous ulcers. That case was an amputation, above knee amputation guaranteed. Every doctor I showed the picture to, above knee amputation, no doubt. You know what? I'll wait a couple of weeks. Nothing's going to happen. You know, we'll monitor if anything is getting dangerous or critical. They started using FlowAid, full closure in 8 months. You're talking about a miracle. But the important point that I'm trying to bring out of that case is you were able to see around the wound area blood coming in, blood seeping out. That means blood was getting to that wound area. The minute he saw that, he said, I know this is going to heal. With no different things, just strictly FlowAid. The guy used it for numerous hours a day. He was like, his compliance rate was high because he knew it's either or. Either no leg or try my best. And this guy was a motorcycle, was a real heavy kind of guy, but he said, either I lose my leg or this. Next. So we're talking about blood getting to that wound area. So if we're going to have a wound, if we're going to have edema, which edema is actually creates a lot of pressure, and a small tiny poke, a small tiny wound becomes a non-healing ulcer. So we could reduce the pressure by taking the edema out. How does edema go out? All is one thing. Like I said, we have venous ulcers, arterial ulcers. The main thing is getting blood to where we have to get it the natural way. We get it out, fresh blood comes in, and starts doing the job that has to be taken care of. A person could treat himself as many hours as he wants, whenever he wants, in the comfort of his home, and he's not limited with any kind of activities while he's being treated. So I think we understand how the 4 electrodes work, what parts get contracted. We know FlowAid does only one thing, pushes blood out. By fresh blood coming in, we're going to have ischemic pain reduction, because when a person has PAD, it's ischemic pain. When a person has diabetic neuropathy, let's talk a minute about that. Neuropathy has been believed to be, till not too long ago, as a neurological problem. We've proven, and a lot of literature recently has been coming out, that they claim to be, it's a venous problem. When you have in the microcapillaries, when they get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, you have the diabetes really clogs up all these tiny, tiny ends. The nerve ends are so microscopic that are almost impossible to get in. I want to back up a second, and I apologize for just being a little bit around the board. I'm sure we'll be able to edit that or put it in the beginning. Now, there are 3 settings to the device. You have this is arterial. I'm sure you'll be able to put some nice lettering to them, no? Now, there are 3 different settings. What creates the difference in the settings is just the speed factor between 1, 2, and 3. how quick do you want to go? Do you want to go very fast? Do you want to create a very strong outflow, which will create a very strong inflow? Or you want to do it average? Or you want to do it especially slow? With people with arterial disease, they have a lot of plaque buildup in the arteries. And if you're going to create any kind of squeeze, any kind of movement, for it to open up back again, it takes a few seconds. And when I say a few seconds, it's microseconds. But it takes a few seconds longer to open up back again. And if we're going to do it too fast, it'll be in lock mode for too long. And we by our own actions, will be compromising the inflow. So by arterial problems, all we do is we do it slow. Venous disease, it's all in the book. It's all in the instruction for use document, the European one. I'll send it with the American one. It's a different story. But I'm just explaining you what the real system is. And I'll explain why for the FDA we had to do it differently. For FDA this is called 1, 2, and 3, just with funny letters, like Roman numerals. By arterial, like I said, is slow. Venous is medium. And for neuropathy, we do it the quickest. Why for neuropathy do we do it the quickest? There's a certain threshold that we have to break to go overboard into those tiny, tiny capillaries of the arteries that feed the nerve ends, which are so much even smaller than that. We have to put so much pressure on for it to break through it and to get something done. You were sitting with me in that hotel, and the guy was rubbing his foot on the carpet, and he had tears rolling down his eyes. What happened?
Well, you couldn't feel it at first.
For 10 years, he didn't feel his foot, and in the hotel room for an hour and 20 minutes, he's sitting on a chair, and he's crying. He was going like this he didn't have a sock on. He was just going, you know, Jacob, I feel the carpet. 10 years, he had no sensations at the bottom of his leg. Don't take this story. I'm not saying it's not true. It's true. Troy was there when it happened. But it's not the typical example. The threshold we don't know. What really just broke through that certain, whatever, maybe it's a main nerve that was clogged and we just pushed it through and got some fresh blood to it. I don't know. But most neuropathic patients will have beautiful results with the pain relief, and the sensation will start returning. It's going to be a gradual thing. For it to happen in an hour and 20 minutes, I don't know how long it lasted, because I didn't follow up. I think you guys were supposed to follow up then about it. I think we wrote a case study about him. He was walking on 2 stumps. Remember the way he was walking up those stairs? It was unbelievable. He was walking the stairs like as if he was like on stilts, and he fell down almost when he started walking, because one foot was loose and one foot was still like he couldn't balance himself. He was used to walking like just with dead legs. But it works, like I said, but we don't know exactly the threshold of when and how much has to go through it for it to start reactivating. Because if you tell a doctor that sensation will return, the guy will show you the door. Most doctors, because they believe that neuropathy is a neurological disorder, and I think then we had Dr. Hoke also say so. It's impossible, right? Nerves don't revive, nerve sensation doesn't come back. It's dead for dead. He said it in our office, right? One of the big neurologists in Johns Hopkins said it can't happen. You're just drinking Coca-Cola too much. But you saw it happen. And the bottom line is, the book really explains all. It starts with anatomy, explaining the musculature, with the veins. I would say, we don't have to go through the book page by page, but I'm saying it gives you, in a nutshell, what I've just spoken in every detail, whether it's knowing which muscles there are, how it works, because you have a board, that's the tibia, the bones, and you have the veins that are usually in between. You squeeze it, you have a backbone. There's another very interesting concept that I've developed recently. I think I've shared it with you guys as well in Wall Street. If we understand better, if we want to maximize the FlowAid's output, you'll try it at home, Troy, and you'll call me tonight and say, Jacob, it's unbelievable. A muscle contracts This is the muscle before contraction. Here's the vein. We'll do the same thing here. Here's the vein, and here's the muscle contracted. Now, let's say this is, we'll do big numbers. This is 1 inch. This is 2 inches, right? The width of the muscle. It's much less, but whatever, I'm just giving an example. There's a very big problem. This 50% going this way of the muscle, we're losing it. It's not helping us at all. What can we do with it? If we take a regular ace band, simple ace band, after you put the electrodes on, you just wrap the leg, easy. What you're creating is you're creating a retaining wall right here. You're maximizing the amount of pressure going onto the vein, which you have lost out here.
Could you do that with Ted hose?
What?
Could you do that with Ted hose? You know.
I would never say somebody should pull up anything on the leg because you'll disconnect the electrodes on the way up. Now, why is this important? Lymphedema, if you take a look at a cross-cut of the leg, you have the bone, you have the veins, and the musculature. There's a picture of a cross-cut of the leg in the book. Don't know which page, but it's important to know the lymphatic system is not always here. There's a lot of things here, this area, and some inside as well. The skin outside that wraps the leg is not strong enough in lymphedema patients that will create these lymphatic hoses and pipes to be able to get contracted and squeezed and massaged just by the fact that this muscle is contracted. So what we've tried and been very successful with Dr. Gicolone in Brussels, he's one of the top lymphedema specialists. Every patient that he tried sent me reports. I think I sent you the fluoroscopy, I don't know what kind of name it is. It's fluoroscopy. No, they inject fluorescence and they infrared.
Fluoroscopy.
They see it.
Fluoroscopy.
Fluoroscopy. Now, having said that, the minute you put a small wrap on the leg above the electrodes, even the lymphatics that are out of the muscle, the fact that you just wrap the leg, you're doing a massage and you're draining the lymphatic system. On the video that I sent you, that he made, we're able to physically see when they injected into the subject the fluorescence, before the FlowAid device was put on, you're able to see very vaguely, because it takes a long time. There's no valvular system in the lymphatics. It just goes up by a squeeze here, squeeze there. There's no valves built in. You just have to massage it and then it goes up. There's a whole system how the lymphatics work. The minute you put the FlowAid on, you're visually able to see how fast it went up until the area over here. Now, what we did was we put a wrap after that, but it was very hard to be able to see through a wrap with the infrared camera. So we made certain holes in certain areas on the wrap, and we just were able to see exactly how much more effective it was than just the FlowAid alone. So there's a lot of development that we could talk about. That's the picture right there. Let's see if they have just the lymphatic system at all. Here they're just talking about the veins and the arteries and the musculature. Maybe they have it. Peroneal. No. That's my mistake. But that's a cross. That's the cross cut I was referring to. I thought it would have had the. Okay. So let's just look at the index and let's see what we covered and what we didn't cover. Okay, here we have the musculature, the cilius and the gastrocnemius are the main muscles that are going to be contracted, and the lower muscles. Understanding the circulation system, it goes through the micro capillaries and it creates a pressure of 0, and then we have to work on getting it up. How it works, the anatomy with the... See, in this picture we understand exactly how a regular healthy subject has the circulation going. The muscular contraction squeezes the veins, gets the blood lifted up over the valves hold it back from reflux, and it goes up regularly. Okay, there's a crosscut that we spoke about. Okay. Chronic venous insufficiencies, we know exactly what we described very well. Arterial disease, the same thing. Ulcers is, if we're going to get the medication, we're going to get fresh blood, and we're going to have the patient starting to walk. And there's a sidekick also, the fact that you're doing muscular contractions, you're strengthening the muscle alone. So that strengthening of the muscle, when you're going to contract that muscle, it'll do even a better job on compressing the vein. So just by doing that muscular contraction system on the leg, you have a sidekick of strengthening the muscle, and the circulation will improve as well. DVT prevention. Jeff, that's your department. Why I say it's yours, the hospital system, it's a device. When a person has post-surgically, he sits in bed, he has that device hanging over the bed, those hoses, and he has to go to the bathroom, he has to call the nurse, they have to disconnect and reconnect, and go and come. The FlowAid device, any increase of circulation will prevent DVT. So it's cleared by the FDA, DVT prevention. We're going to have to figure out how we do it in the hospital systems, but it's approved for post-surgical DVT prevention. Now, we all know very simply why it's going to happen, because if there's a flow, you won't have a DVT. It's just the guy's laying in bed after surgery, whatever kind of surgery, hip replacement, knee replacement, whatever, or even abdominal surgery, whatever it may be. I had my surgery, I had those cuffs on the leg. I asked the doctor, did he ever heard about FlowAid? She said, what's that all about? Next morning he came in and he says, yeah, I just looked it up on the internet. It's some cool device. So I took out my business card and I said, it's me. You know, he was just laughing. You know, I was his patient a few minutes ago, and also I'm teaching him medicine. Next, so we know DVT prevention and edema reduction, which we can't say we treat the disease of lymphedema because we didn't do any studies on lymphatic patients. But lymphedema is a disease, and is not. I don't know of anybody that ever got his lymphedema healed. I have to have a discussion with Sheila about it, and we really have to figure it out.
Neighbors.
You have lymphedema as a disease. Treating lymphedema, you don't treat lymphedema no matter what. You're only treating the symptom of lymphedema, which is the swelling. So if we are allowed to say we treat swelling, and she allowed us to say patients with lymphedema, FlowAid can reduce your edema, it's all kosher. So we just have to work about it. I spoke to Ellie about it, and we have a meeting with Sheila about it. But the bottom line is, we are the only stimulation device that has edema reduction clearance. Why did we get it? Because we had a study. We did a clinical study, we presented the evidence to the FDA, and they accepted the evidence, and they allowed us to say FlowAid reduces edema. In a certain way, it's a major grand slam, because it's not a specific, it's just a very broad claim of reducing edema. Let's talk to you a minute. Sports injuries. How much quicker would a player that has his leg injured, and you could reduce the swelling quickly, how much quicker will you be back playing?
Well, I mean, a sprained ankle or high ankle sprain, I had one, and remember I put it on there?
Right.
It stopped hurting immediately. Immediately. I mean, it was immediate.
But you know the funny thing is, you didn't treat the ankle. You put the electrodes exactly where it was supposed to be, and just pumped everything out, and it took away the swelling, and 90% of the healing is when the swelling is reduced and there's no pressure. So when everything is blown up and everything is locked, really nothing can heal. So if you're assisting the healing, and if it's edema reduction, it doesn't say because you had lymphedema, any swelling could be reduced by the FlowAid device.
Is there anything that the sequential compression therapy devices do that the FlowAid doesn't do? I mean, is this a complete replacement for those devices, or do they? What would they say?
I would answer the question very correctly. It's a cut and paste device. Their speech is going to be exactly what I just said, and they'll turn around and say, you know what? Our device does only one thing, vacates the venous flow. And the rest is the speech that I just gave till now. They don't do anything more, they can't do anything more. Because all they're doing is vacating blood, squeezing the leg.
Right.
And it's either done mechanically. There's some devices that have rollers that go up behind the leg. There's another device that has like an elastic. Oh, you showed me, Len, you showed me recently a company in Israel that was developing a product with smart alloy, smart plastic. You put electrical charge to it, and it gets tighter and looser. So what did the guy do? The guy built a box, put a piece of plastic around it, and just squeezes the leg. Mm-hmm. But there it goes again. If you squeeze the leg in one spot, in one location, you're not accomplishing anything. Any device that doesn't cover from here to here, when the veins are compromised, you're wasting your time. Because so much is going up, because you're squeezing, let's use the roller. It's called FlowAid. Company Jack Hirsch out of Canada, he's the guy that invented low molecule heparin. He came up with this device. I know the patient that he worked on it for. It sits on the back of the leg, like right over here, and there's a roller that rolls a roller that just goes up the leg in this area. So very good. The veins are compromised here and the veins are compromised here. So he was able to accomplish just to push the blood here. What happens from here and up? It's a small device, like maybe 4.5, 5 inches wide. It's almost like saying that the Venoplas and the Gecko create one push. What did one push help a patient that has veins that are compromised? Nothing. A little bit will go over the hill, but you know how many times he has to compress and squeeze the leg to come close to what FlowAid has vacated in the leg? Mm-hmm. Probably 1,000 to 1 when the valves are shot.
Check question.
What?
Off of what Jeff was just asked, is it? Can we create like a battle card that has, all the things that this, from a checkbox?
Every symptom that they have FDA clearance for, it's grandfathered in for like before the 1970s. They never even had to have clinical evidence. Now, they're going to give you a list of venous stasis, venous ulcers. They're going to give you the whole rap sheet.
Who's they? The two?
No, not them. We're talking about all sequential compression devices.
Okay, fair enough.
All sequential compression have like a list. Every symptom of that list it was created by blood flow. That's it. There's nothing else. His hair isn't going to grow. He won't hear better. There's nothing that's going to happen besides what happens when blood flow is increased. It's all related to one factor. Because when you're going to ask the guy, what are you doing? I'm squeezing the leg in a sequential fashion,
right.
Holding the bottom, giving the same speech of FlowAid, but externally.
Is there anything based on their historical approvals versus the current approvals that FlowAid has that we can or can't say? Is there something they can say that we can't?
There's a lot that they could say, because if we want to say today, in today's day and age, that we increase arterial inflow, all we have to do is do a study, let's say 30 patients, and monitor their arterial flow, and we'll get that claim too. We have to go piece by piece. We can't. I asked my FDA consultant a very important question. She's a top gun, right? I think you met Sheila. She qualifies? Top quality consultant. I asked her a question. If we could take a Doppler and we're going to measure the blood flow with FlowAid and measure the blood flow with sequential compression, and we're going to see FlowAid is better, why can't we have all the claims that the guy that's doing it not as good as us? FDA. If you got any pull there or any good connections, we could try to see to do something. But it's not. If we want to take every specific sentence that they have, let's say 6 things on the line, we'll just do a study that this does it too. It'll be better if we do comparison. We could take 1-to-1, head-to-head comparison, and we could just show we're better. that'll be even better. But we technically could get every line item that they have because we know it does it. How do we know it does it? If I take the device, put it on your leg, and I measure your flow in a epithelial vein, or a saphenous, any vein you want, you'll just see it, see it going up. And if that happens, you know what the end result is going to be. So it's like one for one. We know what the output is, and we know what the input has to be. Because if we're creating, nobody ever said that by sequential compression something rare will happen. This kind of hocus pocus. It's just simple technologies. External pressure, squeezing, getting it out of the leg, and that's why it helps. So instead of doing it externally and becoming a couch potato and being sitting on the couch for 2 hours, and your 2 hours you had 120 compressions. 2 hours sitting on the couch with a sequential compression, you had 120 compressions. How long does it take to have 120 compressions on the lowest mode of FlowAid?
About 8 minutes.
Yeah, 25 a minute.
Yeah.
So it's 5 minutes, we're done. 5 minutes sitting on the couch with a FlowAid had 125 compressions, and the guy sitting, the fat lady sitting on the couch, sat there for 2 hours, and it took her 2 hours to get it done. Now, how much blood was vacated? Count the milliliters of how much cc's, how much blood left the leg. You know exactly the mathematics. The quicker it goes out, more fresh blood comes in. And there's a saying, circulation causes circulation. When fresh arterial blood comes in fast enough, it just cleans out the pathways. It creates neoangiogenesis, means new blood vessels are created when there's a good healthy flow. Wherever there's some clog, it just builds around itself, it comes around. But that's only when there's something moving. But if everything is like a standstill, it just gets worse and worse and worse. If you just prime it, things will fall into place. Usually patients are downhill. It gets worse. The first thing the doctor tells you, when a person like is getting 65 years old, you got to do exercise, your circulation. How many 65-year-old people have their exercise system set up in their day? Mm-hmm. And the older they get, the harder to do the exercise. So they're just really doing nothing. I presented this device and we did the mathematics. An hour of FlowAid device is jogging once around Central Park. Dr. Donovan from Columbia. 1 hour, how many times the muscle gets contracted is jogging around Central Park. You know, that's exactly the equivalence of the results of 1 hour of FlowAid. That's what you're going to have when a person jogs around Central Park. It's just really, it strengthens the muscles, it does what it has to do, and the circulation gets improved, and everything falls into place. Like I explained, neuropathy, why neuropathy works. Like I said, you have to do very strong pressure, and there's a threshold which I don't know today exactly what that threshold is. Some people react much quicker. There was a guy, I told you, this guy from Williamsburg, I sent him a device. Like I would say 2 weeks after he started using the device, he calls up the next morning, he says, Yankee, I figured out that the tiles in the bathroom are cold at night. I have to put on slippers. He never needed slippers at night. He never felt that the floor in the bathroom, or the ceramic tiles, or whatever he has, are cold at night. Years he didn't know about it. And like I say, ulcers, most neuropathic patients, 80% of them will end up with ulcers, because they don't even know. I was sitting in the hospital with Dr. Tamir in
Kansas.
He's not in Kansas anymore. He used to be in Wichita. He moved down to...
That sounds like a movie, doesn't it?
He moved down to Fort Myers. I was in his office before he moved. And there was a patient who had a terrible heel ulcer. Terrible heel ulcer. I told Dr. Tamir, I said, something doesn't look good. I've seen a lot of ulcers. He also saw a lot of ulcers. But I don't know, it just caught my eye that something really didn't look good. The color didn't look good. It looked like it's some kind of infection that is not the ulcer kind of infection. He sent the patient for an x-ray. The guy had a 2-inch nail right up his foot and he didn't even know about it.
You feel it.
He didn't feel it. So he removed it. Once he removed it, he was able to clean out the whole thing, and they used FlowAid and they closed up the wound. One of the pictures on the web is the heel ulcer and the heel totally. But there was a real 2-inch nail.
I know we're not doing question and answer, but these two companies that you mentioned here, I'm not real I've not heard of those two. Do those do a peristaltic wave?
No, it's one.
So
They don't do anything.
So that's a simple process of explanation, right?
They just do one. Bang,
Right.
bang,
so
bang.
A peristaltic wave is what FlowAid does, whereas this one, those two don't.
Right.
Okay.
There is no device out in the market today that I know of that has numerous muscular contractions in a sequence and a pattern that does what FlowAid does. You're going to have guys that are going to squeeze this way, or the Vino Plus has, like I said, one pad here, one pad here. They use the body as a conductor, and it's like as if there's two legs being pumped. Now, with those new adapters, we might be able to develop one device to treat both legs at the same time, which I sent the video. You saw the video? The two leg being treated at the same time?
You
Jot
sent
it down.
I thought you sent it to us.
It's a massive, massive thing. We put on a patient. Show me where's the adapter.
He's got the.
Oh, it's laying on the top of my bag, I think.
Splitter.
This goes into the device, and here you connect electrodes. This is just over the counter. We just put it together, and I put it on a patient. You see both legs pumping beautifully. That's unbelievable.
There's enough power output to run
We
two legs.
we have close to 80% of output. Instead of using 50 hours of one charge, it'll be like 40 something hours of one charge. So we're really covered in power. Because consumption is regulated. You can only go a certain amount, and it just goes out. The impedance, we did a lot of testing. We're in the middle of doing it. Ronan is working on it.
It's
Well,
a separate FDA.
We'll need another FDA clearance on the electrode, but it's
510K or something.
510K. Because you're treating out two legs. The electrodes we have is treating one leg. It's just a regular, it's not even an FDA filing, it's probably letter to file of another electrode, another accessory. It's an accessory to an existing product because you don't even need a predicate. If a guy buys two FlowAid devices, could you tell him don't use two at one time? So why shouldn't the guy be able to use one electrode and splice it? He can take as many sets as he wants. He can put one over here, one over here. Having said what I just said, Dr. Gicolone from Belgium came up with a brainstorm when I presented him this two-leg treatment at the same time. What to hear his opinion, a medical opinion. He says, Jacob, I'll tell you the truth. You're down the wrong alley. So I was very disappointed, and he says, let me tell you what the real direction is. So I was very patient. He's like such a small Italian guy. He lives in Belgium. He's an Italian, Gicolona. Anyway, he says, listen to me good, and I'm going to test it, and I should have results next week. Why are you treating two legs? Lymphedema, I want 4 electrodes here, and I want 4 electrodes here. And he explained me medically why his theory is going to work. If the lymphatic system is not massaged and drained here, you know how much harder it is for the lower leg to get drained. This is blocking it. So if you help and assist this area, and this area will go so much better, the results will be double-fold and even more.
Will that help a sciatic nerve?
I don't know what
I'm
sciatic
gonna
nerve problem
I'm
is.
gonna try it because I got one and I can't hardly sit in an airplane seat, much less in a car, without hurting. If that works,
I don't know what the problem of sciatic nerve is. Like I said before, I just graduated high school.
But does your hamstring work the same way as your calf?
For lymphedema, it does not have to have that exact way of blood flow. Lymphatic drainage is massaging the lymphatic system. People that have lymphedema, where do they go? They go for therapy. What does the therapist do? You know what he does? This. He squeezes and he massages the area to loosen it up, and it drains automatically.
That's what the electrostimulation is doing.
Right.
In your calf and in your hamstring.
Right. If it's doing it here,
But I'm saying, does your hamstring behave the same way?
The muscles will contract. No matter, you put it over here. You put it anywhere, those electrodes, you'll have muscular contraction. The trick we have on the lower leg is we know exactly where to put it to create that sequence that we described. But if you're just looking for strong muscular contractions that work like kneading a dough, like 1, 2, 3, and going in a sequence, even if it's in this area, it'll help this area get drained. So I sent him 2 sets, and he calls me up. He sends me an email, Jacob, please send me another 2 sets. He probably has some very interesting results, because when he's quiet for like a couple of weeks, I know what's coming next. So I will report on the findings, and he'll write a paper about it. But you have all the information from Jekyll, right? Mm-hmm. I've documented, testimonials, even results of how much they do plasmography. They do a volume with a perimet. They check from here to the toe. They measure volume by cc's, and you can see exactly how much reduction there was based on FlowAid treatment. I don't know if I made it too quick, too short.
Perfect.
Now let's hear the questions. I think we should keep the questions on also.
We didn't do your introduction, but why don't you do a quick introduction of yourself? So we'll have it as the
that
first.
That should be on tape.
Just do it.
Len, talk to them about me.
I think you can describe your background better than I can.
History.
What I mean.
Of the company.
Yeah.
What I mean by this is just who you are. We don't have to go into detail how this all came about. Just a little simple, 2 to 3 minute.
FlowAid company actually started in about 2006. 2006 we developed our first model. It was like an old handheld transistor radio. That's the way it looked. And when I showed it to my father, he was excited. It looks really cool. So I asked him, this looks cool? He says, if a guy knows his leg is being saved, if it looks like a sardine can with wires, it should be selling too. But it looked really outdated then. We started actually marketing the product, and when the market crashed in 2008, we were really in bad shape. We were doing well at that time, but our financial situation really was not enough to be able to continue our company. We kept everything alive, all the FDA approvals, we had all the CE approvals, and we had actually then filed an FDA and had rejected because the name of the device was FlowAid. FlowAid was too descriptive of what the device does. So they didn't allow the name of the product to be FlowAid. So we figured out a solution. I'll name the company FlowAid. How did it work? Wait a second. I named the company Empire and I named the company FlowAid, and the product had FA100. So they can't tell me what name of the company I should have. But I can't call the device. So the device changed its name then. It used to be called the FlowAid device, then it became the FA100. So then they had nothing to claim about, but we couldn't follow up on it. We needed some more clinical data. The rule then was there are 6 standard electrostimulation claims that you're allowed to claim, and the fact that we're placing the electrode a certain way, we couldn't cause a certain muscular contraction that creates certain muscle, certain leg movement. When you do muscle re-education for stroke patients, you have to be able to create and place electrodes in certain places to be able to exercise the arms or whatever they want to treat. And FlowAid is not built as a rehabilitation device. So then the rule was if you had to claim all of them or none. Today, you could pick and choose which ones we wanted. So we had blood flow, we had DVT prevention, disease atrophy, whatever claims were important for us. We didn't need muscle re-education, so we can't do it anyway, because if you have your instruction for use document saying you have to put electrodes here, and if you want to create a certain dorsal flexion, you're going to have to put one here, one here, one here, it's a whole different system. So, but today we were able to get the FDA clearances. Then it came around, I got another investment in 2011. We produced the new FlowAid, the one that we have here on the table, new device. Much smarter, much more advanced. it is, I would say, it's not super advanced. There's a lot of more room in it. On the board, there's a lot of different options that we could add in the future, which with time we will get to work on. But to give an example of what smart items we put in even before the smart generation, because we only developed it in 2011. If there's an electrode that is disconnected or the wire is torn, FlowAid device reads signals back and forth from the leg and will tell you which electrode is not connected properly to the leg. If you'll see on the screen E3, you'll know electrode 3, either the wire is disconnected, the gel isn't connected well, or when a person's walking around, he didn't notice, it just fell off. He made a wrong move like 3 seconds later, because it takes like a 3 minute cycle. When it tests each electrode, he'll get a beep and he'll see E3, E2, whatever electrode is. It's also good for patients that overuse the electrodes, that don't stick anymore. There's not enough pulsation and enough conductivity to the leg. It'll also identify that. So it's also good for business-wise, that when there isn't the enough of a pulse going to the leg, enough electricity to create the muscular contraction that we want, the machine alone will identify it, and the person will say, you know what, my electrodes are shot, I got to change them, put a new pair on. That's just one example of what we added into it. We got the FDA clearance, like I said. We've always had the CE clearance. That means Europe. There's certain different regulations, what has to be in a box of this, what you're allowed to say, what you're not allowed to say. This is a typical European box, which has a whole indications for use, which we can't have all of them on. With the advantages are all standard. There's a new barcode that we're going to have to put on. It's called UDI, not the one we spoke about. There's a new FDA regulation. It's called Uniform Device Indication. I think it's a certain square barcode that a person should be able to see that this device is registered with FDA. It's a new regulation coming in 2018, and it's going to have to go on the next printing of boxes. Even the repack that we're doing for them, we're going to have the UDI, because if it won't be able to be sold then when the laws come into effect without that sticker on.
Yeah, we can just put a sticker
We
on.
can put a sticker on,
Yeah.
but it isn't much better. We already applied for a UDI code, so we should have it momentarily.
Show us on the device behind you, just quickly. Just hold it up and
Okay.
show us the settings.
Something very important, which I've found recently, that a lot of patients, I wouldn't say screw up, they just don't know really, if they're trained the first time by a professional or somebody shows them the device, it seldom happens. Here's a slider. Okay, this is the device, you put it on, and if it's charged, whatever, I'll try. Okay. This is AA. This is arterial setting. We'll do a quick IFU instructions. Hold the negative button down for 3-4 seconds. Now it's blinking. 1. Oh shit, sorry. I don't even know myself.
Edit that.
Okay, AA. Now you can, this is PA and this is VE. Whichever setting you want, you set it now, and it'll stay the default setting always until you don't change it. Once you know exactly what setting you want, you push the plus. Once it goes up to 1, 2, 3, it can't be changed anymore. It always has to go back down to 0 or 1, and then only then could you change the mode of operation. Now,
That was a huge advancement from the old one.
yeah, with those
Huge. With those little,
bullets,
Yeah.
it was impossible to move them.
Talk
I still
about
have one of those.
talk about the slider. Why?
That's why I'm taking the electrode now.
Yeah. Why do you have that slider versus not having that on there?
The reason you need a slider over the two connectors of the device is, God forbid, there's a short circuit in the device and the guy's charging up the device plugged into the wall, and he has an electrode on his leg will go flying.
At the same time.
Yeah. So we, by safety regulations, we had to put a mechanism in the device that it can't be plugged in, charging, and being treated at the same time. So this can't go out. This slider could either be on the electrode mode. Now, I just want to show something very important, and I've bumped into it very often. We'll start here. The slider isn't all the way to the right. Okay?
Yeah.
Why am I showing it to you? People just get it a little bit exposed. This edge of the electrode, they think, oh, it's in.
Yeah, it's not working.
It's not working.
Yeah.
So when we'll touch up the IFU, I want to make mention to it. It will help a lot. Let me show it. This ledge of the electrode, you see here?
Yep.
And if it's not, the slider isn't all the way to the right, and just you expose this thing enough,
It'll
patient puts it in, and it's not going in all the way. And people start screaming, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I say, do me a favor, this is the first thing I say. Move the slider all the way till the end. Is the electrode in correctly? Sliders go till the end. Sometimes people just expose it till here. This edge, go right here. See, I just pushed it so hard.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't let it go in all the way. And when it goes in all the way, the connection is proper.
Gotcha. Thank you.
We've had it numerous times. I think we have to make just a small note on the IFU to avoid as a troubleshooting issue. Make sure the slider is all the way till the end. I think it says it, but I think we should make a picture of it or make a diagram.
Talk about the different intensities now, real quick.
Different intensity is also a very important factor. Nobody has the same intensity. There's no number that you start with. It doesn't exist. There's no dose to start with. The dose you start with is what a patient can tolerate. When a patient's going to go up to 80, which is the maximum on here, he might not feel anything. His nerves are so shot and so weak that there's no connectivity going, he doesn't know what's happening. If you don't, it's very important at this point. If you don't see contractions, it doesn't mean the machine ain't working. Use it today, use it tomorrow, use it for another couple of days. It's going to keep, the pulses are there. It's just not activated, you don't see anything yet. The patient doesn't feel anything. A week later, all of a sudden, oh, I start feeling something. 2 weeks later, oh, it hurts already. When you're going down on your amount of voltage going into the leg, you know you're in the right direction. Because the nerve ends are starting to revive, the connectivity is becoming better. What's carrying the pulse? You put an electrode here, an electrode here, why is this muscle going? The body alone, the nervous system, is carrying the connectivity going through the pulses, which create the muscle to contract. So just by putting an electrode here and here, and not seeing any pulse, doesn't mean it's not working. Do it, use it. It could take a week, or it could take a week and a half, 2 weeks. You will end up starting to feel it. You'll end up saying it's too high, and you'll average down. People sometimes have a phobia that if they know the device works from 0 to 80, I want to start like 30. I'm afraid to. It's a certain mind block that people have. I don't want to go up more than 50. Who the hell cares what number it says on your screen? We are trying to create a muscular contraction. If it's going to take 60 to do it and doesn't hurt, then there's a certain. I found just the last couple of years, I put it up to 35. I said, why did you put it up to 85? It hurt you by 35? 36 hurt, but 35 is better? It's a mindset of people. There's a certain thing we have to think about to overcome that. To give a guy comfort, to tell him, even if you're at 80, the world don't come to an end.
I'm going to give you my personal experience with the device from a long time ago. When I first put it on, and even to this day, you can't feel it for quite a while. And so I crank it up, but then you'll start feeling a tingle like somebody's sticking you the pin, and you'll start seeing your muscle. Man, it really, and then you have to turn it down. But I'm assuming, I don't know this, I'm assuming once it starts, you start feeling you have to start turning it down, is when your blood is actually flowing. Is that what's going on? And that's why you can't feel it at first.
You can't feel it first.
And then it starts, it's unbelievable how different it feels.
You can't feel it first. It's nothing to do with blood flow. It has only to do with the nerves. Your nervous system is so weak that it can't carry the pulse.
So I'm an unofficial patient.
Unofficial patient.
Yeah, because it's worked. It worked every time it works that I've ever used it.
I want to add something very important. We were discussing what the advantage of having the wrap on the leg while the person's treated, how much stronger it goes. I did it with Dr. Graham Bowen in his office, and we came up with a very interesting theory. It's just mathematics. Lynn, your department. When you contract the muscle, and you were, let's say, at 40, and you had a certain sensation of squeeze. If you are holding a retaining wall with that wrap on the leg, you'll probably need 20 with the wrap to feel the same sensation. That's exactly what happened. Why is that important? If we're going up to 80 on the display, and you're with a wrap, you're really 160. You're getting an effective 160, which sometimes is very advantageous because a patient at 80 won't feel anything yet.
So that's why you used me as an example a while ago about saying try that tonight, because you knew that happened to me. That might, okay, now I get you.
But the wrap is over the whole leg,
No, the wrap is here.
but it's not moving. What the
You don't want it to move.
No, but I'm saying the reason that the FlowAid device causes blood to flow is because it sequentially
Right.
does that, like a
But-
tube of toothpaste.
Right. But if
But
you
if
have
you
a
have
much
a whole
strong
wrap around the whole tube of toothpaste, how does that
No.
help making the blood flow?
So let me explain what happens, why the effect is better. If you have a muscle contracting,
It has to go farther, right?
goes further and holds it better. Where was I at the picture? Here. If you go like, if you have a muscle contraction that goes here, and if your muscle contraction is going here, really solid, you have zero reflux. And you're really emptying the whole area, because 50% that's lost is also going this way. Because it can't go further than the wall that you're building, and it can't go further than the bone. So you're really giving it a real healthy squeeze. I put it on Dr. Graham's bone leg, and I wouldn't say it was 40 to 20, but we were able to reduce it drastically. I wouldn't say half. I would say we were able to reduce the feeling that the guy had at 40. He was able to get it at a much, much lower number. So why is that important? If a person is not getting the pump and the push he needs, even if he's at high numbers, and you put the wrap on, he'll feel it. And feeling is the most important factor. Why is the most important factor? Why don't people use sequential compression? They don't want to sit for 2 hours and eating popcorn and watching a soap opera.
Right.
Even in the hospital bed. They want to go to the bathroom, they want to go out on the porch, have a cigarette. They have to call the nurse, disconnect and reconnect. It's a whole procedure. FlowAid, you put it into the pocket. What's the main important thing is, if you have this, what was I trying to address? It just slipped my mind. I had a thought.
Talking about the sequential compression therapy. Why do people not want to do
Oh, when people feel what's happening, it's not you go to a doctor. The doctor tells you take this pill for 10 days. If it didn't get better, call me back. I'll give you something else. The patient doesn't know what he's supposed to feel, what's supposed to happen. If he has stomach aches, he'll have a whole week stomach aches. He'll tell the doctor after 10 days, my stomach is still hurting. I'll give you a different medication. People that use FlowAid become part of their own treatment regimen. They become believers the first time they use it. Why is that so? They feel a warm rush coming down their leg. They also feel that the leg that they treated is lighter, easier. They limp. After treatment of an hour, they're going to limp because one foot is loose and one foot is a log. Once a patient believes and he sees with his own feeling, His toes are moving easier. It's not so cold. His legs aren't so cold. He doesn't have spasms at night. These people go through terrible pain, restless nights of sleep. All of a sudden, this cute small thing works. So, and they know it's not a hard thing to do. They're not compromising anything of the daily schedule. That's why the compliance rate is so high, comparing it to all these monster big tubes and pumps and things. So the minute the patient feels he's part of it, he feels what's happening, he knows what's happening, and he can feel it on his own legs. Like I said, the warm rush. I think I did it to you. After his leg was treated for an hour, I told him the leg that wasn't treated, lift it like this. I remember, like this. All of a sudden he did the same effort to the right leg and he almost kicked his butt.
I did.
That's how easy it went up. He didn't just...
So the Venapulse works on 4 channels. I
No.
mean, not the Venapulse. The FlowAid works on 4 channels. The Venapulse and the Gecko work on 1 channel?
One channel.
1 channel.
Just positive and negative.
Okay.
And just gives one squeeze.
And the Gecko is a disposable
The Gecko is a
device.
disposable device that just works kind of on the popliteal nerve. It's like a band-aid that has 2 positive and negative that causes a firing of the popliteal nerve. It causes one calf muscle contraction.
Okay. And the Venapulse...
Venoplus.
I'm sorry?
Venoplus is called.
Venoplus.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir. The Venoplus, that is not a disposable device. It's
It's like a FlowAid device.
it's similar, you know, where it has a
A
handheld
device with a screen, with buttons.
Okay, and that's mainly, is that marketed in the U.S.?
Starting to be marketed in the U.S. for a while. I don't know what they're doing. There's a company called VasoCare that's doing the marketing. They're actually in the South. And you know VasoCare? They do a lymph press they sell. It's important, well, when we talk about reimbursement, it's very important to look at their website. They're trying to put a spin on getting the claim of disc atrophy. They're trying to put the whole issue of poor circulation is because your muscles aren't good enough. I just don't remember it, but we'll discuss it.
I'm going to go back to where he was heading with the...
Len?
Yeah, Len with the
Where
rap.
are you heading?
Well, with the rap, when we was talking
You have a
about...
flight already?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I want to, because I understand, I mean, 2 things I want to mention when I talk about the wrap. When the more you treat with the wrap on, the looser the wrap's going to get if you're swollen, right? It should.
But a wrap is either Velcro or it's a regular ace band.
No, I understand, but if I'm swollen leg and I put a wrap around it, it's going to reduce. But economically, would you prolong the life of a set of leads
No.
by doing this?
No.
Okay. You know why I'm asking the question.
You don't want to,
Right. I mean, it's a razor blade, right?
right? You want to use as much as possible.
Yeah.
No question about it. It does have nothing to do with the
Nothing to
life
do with the
expectancy.
Okay.
The life expectancy of electrode is how many times it's on, how many times it's off. Who cares what's put on? Wrap over it or not wrap over it. And also very important, in the beginning, most diabetic patients have like dry skin on the legs. What happens is in the beginning, they put moisturizer cream, they put this kind of cream, this kind of garbage.
Yeah.
It screws up the electrodes in 2 seconds. The minute it has that kind of gel or that cream or that moisturizer, so in the beginning, the first 2 sets or 3 sets of electrodes will be gone the first week, right?
So we wouldn't want to talk about the wrap in general terms unless we wanted
It's something for the nothing.
Right, it's not
nothing for
something
tomorrow.
now. Okay, so it's not something.
And
we
this
wanna,
double lead electrodes is
Because
not for tomorrow either.
right? Because I think you actually worked with somebody you knew on with using that, right? And it made a big difference.
Huge difference. I lost 1 inch in 3 days.
1 inch circumference in 3 days.
Yep.
That's a heck of a lot.
Question: if somebody's going to use a wrap, and say over time they improve,
Okay.
Can they take the wrap off at that point because they've improved their vascularization, so to speak, their venous output? Would they be able to, over time, not use the wrap and move forward? Or do you advocate the wrap just to make sure you stay within?
Usually people with venous compromise, it's not gonna, even if you have blood flow, your veins are damaged. These people will always either use a small compression stocking to put on, but when the condition is severe, first of all, compression stockings compliance rate is also down the tubes, because the right pressure that is needed for a patient can't usually go on easy.
Right.
So if it's going on easy, you know it's the wrong size. So that's why the compliance is also down the tubes. I'm dealing now with some companies in the Middle East. Nobody could wear that in the hot summers. The usage of the compression garments in the Middle East is close to zero, even though they need it. They'd rather use a FlowAid device just to pour stickers on, put it into their pocket, walk around and be treated, than put on these compression stockings.
Yeah. One last thing for me, and I won't say anything else.
You can
This
say whatever you want.
this double lead here is gonna. I mean, it's gonna make a big difference. And I'll use my own experience. And I put it on one leg.
You don't have to say your experience. I'll tell you, simple. Usually a person is sick on both legs.
Right, but yes, but if I have one that's worse than the other,
So what
And
you
I'm
do is
gonna
you treat
treat
first
the
the
one.
worst one.
and then I normally don't do the other.
Right.
I'll be honest with you. But if I had a splitter, I would use both, which means I'm probably going to use twice as many leads or
Right.
electrodes because I'm going to be running that more often. Because I mean, I'm looking at it. I know we're helping people.
We don't want repeat sales though.
I'm talking about. I mean, I'm talking about from my own perspective. Why I normally one is worse than the other, so I do it on the one that's worse. A lot of times I don't do it on because even though I'm portable and all that, still treat the worst, and I don't normally do both. But if I could do them both at the same time, I do both every single time. And
Well,
then-
if you have a choice, if you only have one, then you're like, okay, I've got to treat one, I'm going to treat the worst.
Right. If you have an option.
right, if I can do both, I would do both every time, which means the lead. I'm looking economically. The lead sales would go double, or could, because I'm going to use both, which means two are going to go back much quicker.
And very seldom do you have a patient that has only one leg problem. If there's a compromise in the veins, it's not just because it was in a car accident and got hit with his left foot.
But from a diabetic neuropathy piece, 90%. And that's my guess. I'm just a guess. It's not a mathematical proof. I can almost bet that one leg is always worse than the other.
That's
Either
true.
the left leg or the right leg is going to be worse than the other in that scenario. Because in my case, it is. That's the same thing. One's worse than the other.
Neuropathy, I did see some people have it very weird. Some people have neuropathy on one leg till the ankle. This part they don't feel, and the other leg they have it till here. It's so not balanced. People that have swelling edemas, it's usually even.
Yeah.
And when it's just venous disease and really swelling and you want circulation, it'll be very close leg to leg. But neuropathy could be one here, and some people have just one leg.
Right.
Or one leg is starting the tingling pain, and one leg already is finished. You have no pain anymore.
We're talking a little, about competition, this and that. Maybe I should save this till later, and just tell me, we'll address it later. Price points of...
Later is now.
Okay, price points of Venapulse compared to FlowAid. What?
I'd be honest, I have no idea.
Okay.
Don't know what they're selling for here in the United States.
Or in Europe. I mean, they're based
I think it's
out
like about 150 euro just for the device. And they sell the pads. It's 2 pads like for 20. It's on the website. You could buy it online.
Let's wrap this part and then we'll get into Q&A, but is there anything else we want to cover for this? All right.
Jeff,
Does that mean we can
First
go
name, Mark?
offline?
who's Mark?
Let's
You're
do
Mark
that.
and you are?
All right.
He's Mark and you are?
Eric.
Eric.
Here.
Eric.
All right. Say that we're over and out. You're Jacob. Are you Jacob?
I'm Jacob.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.